Aduro just reported the third quarter financial results. So they had a press release, they released the financials, and then a management discussions. So let's start with the press release. So Ofer Vikas, the CEO of Aduro, during the third fiscal quarter, Aduro continued to execute towards its 2025 strategic goals by expanding engineering capacity and leadership while maintaining momentum in its customer engagement and commercial scale-up programs. Additionally, the filing of a new patent, remember there was a new patent, for a novel process design enhancing the effective implementation of our hydrochemolytic technology further strengthens our ability to advance both chemistry and practical application for the company's technologies. Now, Bina Bishay, the CFO, following our NASDAQ listing in November 2024, Aduro remains focused on advancing its growth strategy and scale-up program. With a strong cash position and a seasoned management team, the company is well positioned to execute on its strategic priorities through the remainder of the fiscal 2025 and beyond. So, with a strong cash position, if we go to the financial statements, you can see the company has, this is in Canadian dollars, $8.3 million of cash in the bank. And so part of this money is, of course, what they had before. Part of it is exercise of warrants, and part of it is the money from raising from the IPO going on NASDAQ. So cash position is strong. Let's go back to the press release. They're talking about quarterly revenue of about $63,000. So that's here. This is a nice table here for the quarter. This was the revenue. Prior quarter was this much. The quarter before was 55. They had a little bit higher revenues before in the 100,000 range. But remember, there's this balance, right? Because this is revenue, the testing revenue. And so they're now balancing it out between testing revenue from customer engagement program versus building their own unit, right? So how do they allocate the resources? And of course, if you're invested in Aduro, you know that you're not invested in it for this tiny testing revenue. You're invested in it for the commercialization of the technologies and what it can bring in revenues and profits in the future. So that was the revenue from the press release. And as it says, a decrease of 39% versus 103 generated in Q3 2024. So they're talking about versus this quarter, right? Which is exactly 1 year ago. Year-to-date revenue for its 9 months was 156,000, a decrease of 33 compared to the 9 months prior. All of the company's current revenue is earned through the completion of services under the customer engagement program, right? So testing revenue for evaluation of the company's technology. So remember this, most of the time in this industry, the clients don't pay for testing. The smaller companies have to eat all of this cost. So to have Aduro actually charge others for testing this technology is a big deal, and it's a big deal, and I said that before, because usually the bigger companies are just like, well, show us, and we're definitely not paying for it. This revenue is not recurring, right? Because it depends on testing and new clients in the customer engagement program, and is driven by testing and technical evaluation work conducted during the period. Additionally, progress made on ongoing customer engagement program depends on multiple factors, including the allocation of the company's resources between the technology upscale and commercialization program and the ongoing analysis and and customer engagement program. So this is what I said. They have to balance it out. Where do they put the resources? To testing or building their own unit? And then, of course, this is the loss from operations. And so if we go to the income statement, so this is for the quarter, very tiny revenues. And of course, you have research and development, general administrative, because remember, they're building an asset right now. So you're going to have a bunch of expenses and you're going to have a big loss. Okay. And that, all of these losses are, of course, paid for from the cash in the bank and capital raises. And then, of course, the loss was primarily driven by the company's growth, hiring of new employees, increase in non-cash based compensation, as well as corporate expenses associated with NASDAQ listing in November 2024. At February, carrying cost of property, plant, and equipment was 4.2 million, representing an increase of 85,000 and almost 500,000 in the 3 and 9 month period. So this is property, plant, and equipment. This is what you see on the balance sheet. So they're talking about that the cost is 4.2 million. So if we go back to the balance sheet, this is this item here, property and equipment. You can see that it increased, but they're talking about 4.2 million because this is net. This is after depreciation. So we have to go, because what they're talking about here is 4.2 million, and we only see 3.3 million here. So we got to go to note 7. This is where you can see that 4.2 million, okay? And then after taking into the account all the accumulated depreciation, right? Which is an expense, non-cash expense on the income statement, that's where you arrive at the 3.3 million, which shows up on the balance sheet here. Okay, but the point is that they are increasing the property, plant, and equipment because they're building another unit, right? And again here, the company maintained a strong position, 8.4 million on the balance sheet, which again is right here. And then they list a bunch of corporate updates, reaching a key milestone in pilot plant design. They announced a new patent, appointed a vice president of engineering, appointed vice president of finance. The bankers exercised the over allotment of options, directors, and then they're talking about what they're doing here for the investor relations. And they are talking about how Aduro participated in the following conferences, all of these conferences, right? Talking about the cash balance. So based upon the available cash and cash equivalents of $8.4 million, the company believes that it has sufficient working capital to meet its obligations for the next 12 months. Also, in addition to this cash in the bank, as this says here, subsequent to February 28, there were some warrants that were exercised because there were, if you recall, in April, some warrants were expiring. So the company received another $1.5 million. So this $1.5 million, together with what was reported here, they're sitting on about $10 million worth of cash right now. So in summary, $10 million in cash, this should be enough to cover the cost of the NGP and about 12 months of cash burn. All of these figures are in Canadian dollars.